So how are you? You're in Charleston?
I'm
You
good. I'm getting ready to leave Charleston. The final for the students was on Wednesday, and
okay?
they did exceptionally well. Nobody failed. It was very good.
And listen, when I was in Charleston, it was I loved it. Having the opportunity to talk to your students was great. And what did you say once I'd done the class?
Oh, they wanted you back. That was for sure. Such a dashing travel journal.
Where would you be going then after?
Well, I've got a couple. I've got a busy summer, so I think I told you I'm relocating to Palm Springs in California. California, but it's going to take a while to get there, and I have some book signings to do, and I will
Mm,
be on Tuesday in Los Angeles for IPW, which, as you know, is the
yeah.
Woodstock of travel conferences. So, getting all of my interviews lined up and my appointments and dinners, and there's so many people there, and everybody wants to talk, and it's always a great time. So I'm looking forward to seeing old friends, making new ones.
When you've written the book, and it's fabulous, by the way, where did you get the time to write all this and
well,
to be a professor and be a writer? How did you get all that time?
you know what it's like, Shebs, as a travel guy, you are always scheduling downtime somewhere, and you've always got your trusty laptop.
Yeah.
So I was able to do it, and also remember part of this began during the pandemic, so there was plenty of time because travel journalism wasn't really happening because nobody was traveling. So this was a
Mm.
good breathing point to dive into a book, and excited about the prospects ahead. I'm teaching again, compressed version of the class, October, November, and next March I will be a host on National Geographic's private jet tours, which
Oh,
is
fabulous.
putting 70 people on a plane and flying to some of the great destinations.
Have you chosen who's on that plane?
Well, I think anybody can be on it if you can afford the ticket. It's
Ah, you have to buy it. Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, so it's about 100K, I think. So it's an excellent way, I think, of being able to see the world. Yes, it's expensive, but it's a once in a lifetime trip, and a lot of people have been doing it. It's become quite popular.
And how long is it for? Is it you just sort of
20
going?
days, I believe.
Yeah, I know. Oh,
Quote
nice.
me, but I think it's 24.
So will you move back to Charleston to teach, or will you be teaching in California?
No, I'll come in. I'm here only for 8 weeks, so then I'll return to California. I've got so many things going on, Sheps. It's
Yeah.
just, and that doesn't count some of the press invitations, which, as you know, can
Yes.
be expensive. So you have to be careful what you pick and choose because you can just get easily overbooked. It's an interesting time to be in travel journalism because it's so damn unrewarding.
Mm.
You know, that I think it's very rare that people can support themselves purely by travel writing in this day and age. The standard dollar a word, I don't know if, maybe it's a pound a word in the UK, hasn't
No,
changed
no, no, no,
until
no, it's not. No.
1975.
No.
So imagine
Well, well,
1975, people were getting a dollar a word.
well, it's actually gone less now. So in the UK now, I've got a travel publication, as you know, a travel magazine. Now I pay 25p per word, and actually that is very competitive. And I'm new, by the way. Our magazine's very new to the industry, but I believe we're very competitive. And I was shocked because I've had all the best writers pitched to me, which is amazing, by the way. But when I first took over the magazine, I was thinking I'll work with some new writers, bring them up, help them. But then I'm getting pitches from award-winning writers, and I've which has obviously helped my magazine get to where it is now, which is fantastic. But and
Could you share with me?
yeah, so Voyager's Voice, and actually, yeah, and we were up against Nat Geo in an award the other day. Well, the Nat Geo UK, I should say. Obviously, there's Nat.
Saw Pat Riddell, yeah, he was posting.
Yeah, so we were up against Nat Geo, Condé Nast, and that is because we've had the great writers pitched to me, and I mean, I'm over the moon the fact that because when I first took over, as I said, 25p, I thought, oh, I know the standard industry rate here in the UK is about 50p. However, a lot of the national newspapers don't even pay that, and if they're not paying that and they're about par with me, you're going to get people who are award-winning writers pitching to me, and that's a bit of a sad state actually, because I spoke to a guy
Oh,
called
no, they just plug it into AI. I'm
as
just kidding. I don't think travel writers would ever resort to AI to write a travel
no,
piece. I
no,
mean,
no,
you
no.
can't. AI is terrible in the fact that it's not accurate, it lies, it just wants to please you. So it's going to always tell you something that may or may not exist.
But as a travel editor, though, you will definitely be able to tell whether it's been AI written or it's been written by a human, because you can tell straight. I can tell. I'm sure you can. Reading, writing the
With
last
my students, yes. But I will tell you
50
what's
years.
happened with younger people is that they rinse it through AI. So what they do is they write it and then they ask it to grammatically correct it. So the
Nice.
change, just when AI has come in between grammatical errors and sentence construction has been night and day. I have a strict policy. I mean, if you hand me a paper that's been done in AI and you fail. So
Mm.
but if you hand me a paper and I always tell my students, use this as a tool. So that you have your own thoughts. AI can't replicate you. So use this as a tool, and what you need to do is use it as an outline. Everybody in Britain loves Charleston. So what accounts for that, do you think, Shet?
It's away from the big cities, isn't it? So New York, you know what you're getting with that. But Charleston's got that. When I came, what I was amazed by it was the hospitality, the how nice everyone was. The food was amazing, and everyone was just so friendly. And there's so much history as well, and it's close by as well. You can walk everywhere. It's not too far from everything. But that's what I loved about Charleston when I came, and I obviously met you. I was working with the guys, obviously from the Charleston Tourism Board, but they were all fantastic. Everywhere I went, I loved it. And when I came, obviously there was the food festival or something, wasn't it?
Yes,
Like,
the
yeah,
food festival is.
that
There's
was
always a food festival here.
that was
Every weekend is a food festival.
That's true. Oh, when I think I told you I left, I'm sure I put on like 14 to 16 pounds worth of weight, which I had to shift when I came back because you guys just kept feeding me, and the portions are so big as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing everybody comments about in the States. I still remember a French journalist I was with in Chicago who ordered a side order of asparagus. It was absolutely a mountain, and all he could do was utter these, curses in French about how what a waste.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really sort of insulted him that there was this much food. But Americans will shovel it in.
We should really start talking about your book. Well, let's do the intro of the book. Hello, welcome to Take a Wonder with Shebs, the ultimate travel podcast. As you've just been seeing there, that was the behind the scenes of my chat with Andrew Nelson, who I interviewed for his new book, Here Not There, 100 Unexpected Travel Destinations. During the discussion, we'll find out why he decided to write this book and whether there's going to be more coming up in the future. Before we go into all of that, here's how you can support the channel. You can support the channel by heading over to www.shebsthewonder.com. You'll be able to see the store tab, which you can hover over to and click. You can then buy various items from t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, even water bottles and phone cases. If you have any questions, you can send me a message through the contact tab. Right, sit back and enjoy my discussion with Andrew Nelson. Andrew, welcome to the show. It's really great to have you on. Well, you're a very busy man because you've written a book, and this is why you're here to talk about Here Not There, and it's with association with National Geographic, so I should say. And we're going to be talking about why you've decided to write this book and why it was commissioned as well in the first place. But before we go into your book a little bit more, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started working with National Geographic.
I actually have, ever since I was a child, I always wanted to be in the place where words and pictures collided. So that was magazines, print magazines. So I started out in print magazines, and then shifted to a brief stint in computer games. I co-founded a company called Cyberflix that did rather well in the middle 1990s, doing CD-ROMs, which you might remember from your
Hmm.
childhood. And we actually came out with one conveniently at the same time James Cameron was releasing one of his motion pictures. Ours was called Titanic Adventure Out of Time, and it allowed you to explore the entire ship and have all sorts of adventures. And then when uh, you assembled whatever you needed to assemble, there it signaled the iceberg collision, and then you had 2 hours to get off the ship and into a lifeboat to survive. So it was a race against time, and it did really well. And from there, I went into San Francisco and got involved with the internet boom in 2000, in the early 2000s, which I will tell you, for most of your listeners will not remember, it ended badly. So by 2001, Britannica.com, who I was working with, had laid us all out, laid us all off. And so on September 10th, 2001, I got on a plane to fly to New York to see friends who lived in Lower Manhattan. Well, on September 11th, 2001, you know what happened. We were woken up by the boom of the plane flying into the World Trade Center, which I had, unfortunately, a front seat to.
Oh,
So saw the entire thing unfold before my eyes. And at that time, the next day, the phone rang. And this was the era of little clamshell phones. Everybody was on lockdown. Nobody could go beneath above 14th Street in Manhattan. There was smoke filled the air everywhere. And Keith Bellows, the legendary travel editor from Nat Geo, who I had worked with when I was just after college, university, uh, called me up and said, "I hear you're available." And I said, "Thank you, Keith. That's a very nice way of saying I've been laid off, sacked. But yes, I'm available." He goes, "I want you to get on Amtrak for 4 weeks and travel around the country and file reports, because something like this has never happened. It's going to change the face of travel." So that was how I got my start with National Geographic. He was the editor in chief, legendary editor in chief of National Geographic Traveler, in located in Washington, and I've been working for them ever since.
one of the things about life in general, you get laid off and something like this happens where you meet someone in and you probably weren't expecting it, and look where you are now, 20 years on.
Well, I mean, these are the sorts of the things that where life, always recognize a good opportunity, Shebs. When one is presented to you, grab it. So it was funny. I was filing these reports, and if you what happened was that people eventually got up on airplanes again. So the magazine didn't run the piece because people were flying again, but they wanted it. That was the days when magazines could assign you, pay for your expenses, do
Yeah.
everything, and not and spike the story because things have changed.
Mhm.
So I think a little of it got in, but it started my career. So I've had a long, glorious career with National Geographic.
Let's talk more about your book, which is why you've come on the show, which is Here, Not There, and it's available now for everyone to buy. And I tell you what, this is fantastically written. And first question I want to ask you is, why do we need a book like this on our shelf?
Well, and it's funny, and I should say that when we first started, and I was working with my editor, I don't know if you know Allison Johnson, she's amazing, just a fantastic. They've got a fantastic team at National Geographic Publishing. Love them dearly. We started this when I was talking with Allison, and the idea came of all the places that I've been. I'm kind of like that Johnny Cash song, "I've been everywhere." I'm sure you feel like that too. But there are places that are evocative or contain a spirit or some physical resemblance to other more popular destinations. So you've been around enough, and you go to San Antonio and you go, look at these canals in the San Antonio River, which is all. I understand you might be going there, so that's why I'm
Mhm, mhm.
with just fantastically beautiful river walks, a series of islands in the city, and it's evocative of Venice. Very different, I should say, but there's that idea of a large city, bustling, vibrant, diverse. with water and how they've accommodated for it. That reminds you of Venice. Again, the food is fantastic in San Antonio, and they have their own version of Carnivale, or the Mardi Gras in Venice. It's called Fiesta, and it's
Hmm.
later in the spring, but it's got its own traditions, and it's just a riot of color. It's glorious, and so there's some similarities there. So what I want to do is get people thinking out of the box. At the same time, I think we all had come down with a collective case of FOMO after the pandemic.
Hmm.
So what did everybody do? They got on planes and they went to Italy. So, you would walk in Italy and all you would be hearing is English,
Hmm.
not Italian.
Or Santorini. I remember going to Santorini. Everyone was there.
Yes. And so, you might as well be in Miami, correct? Uh,
Yeah.
for that matter, if you don't hear Greek, you hear English. And so that was the other thing. And then, of course, because so many people were traveling, things got crowded, overcrowded. It was very interesting. I'm just reading this weekend, Venice has just begun charging €5 to
That's correct. Yes.
get into the center of the city, in an effort to control the sheer amount of crowds. So you have, this tremendous upsurge in visitation, and everybody's bucket list began to spring some leaks,
Mhm.
right? All of a sudden, it wasn't so much fun to wait, 2 hours to go inside the Pantheon or climb the Acropolis or get a tour of Westminster. It was kind of a pain and it took away from that experience. So that was another reason. And thirdly, of course, inflation is now with us. We have
Mhm.
inflation, and places that aren't crowded are genuinely, or generally, excuse me, cheaper. So, or less expensive, I should say. Not always, and you have to qualify all of this. And the other thing, Shebs, I'm not telling people, not to go to these iconic places. As Humphrey Bogart said, we'll always have Paris.
Which you wrote, by the way, in the book.
Exactly. See? It's a talking point, but it's at the same time, it's true. I want people to go to see Yosemite and to see Angkor Wat and to go to the Great Barrier Reef. But these places are alternatives, and it's giving you the idea, perhaps, that is there a place that you like? What might be an alternative to that place that you think might be fun exploring? So it's an idea book as well. So thought I want people to be inspired.
Can I ask you the question? Have you been to? Because you've written about 100 unexpected destinations. Have you been to all of these places yourself?
I would love to say that I have, but unfortunately, thanks to the pandemic and sheer time, some of them I did not get to. I was quite frustrated, let's put it that way. But the reason, of course, is because you couldn't travel,
Mm.
or, there was not a lot of time. But luckily, we have first rate travel researchers and, more importantly, the network of Nat Geo photographers and writers. Nat Geo people talk to each other about where to go, what to see, and what to do. So,
So it's a combination of writers that Nat Geo use, photographers, researchers, and they've come to
calling, yeah,
you.
calling my network and saying, "Hey, what places like this? What's inspired you? Where do you want to go?" And then, of course, you do the research and you do the reporting and you do all of those other things. But I would say maybe 60% of these places I've been to myself.
That's
Certainly, every place in the state. Looking at all of these diverse places, and as you know, as an editor, you have to have the right mix. Correct?
100%.
So, Lecce, Italy is an amazing place. Have you ever been?
No, I haven't. I did see that in the book. It looked amazing.
It just, yeah, it's gorgeous. It's so much fun. I'm sure you've been, and as a student, you've toured the Houses of Parliament. But if you go to the one in Budapest,
I've been to the one in Budapest actually.
yeah, twice as big. And they have these amazing things. Have you ever heard of ruin bars?
No, I haven't.
So ruin bars are sort of like raves, but in the old Jewish quarter of Budapest, there are a lot of buildings that have sort of fallen into a no man's land of ownership. So
Mm.
these beautiful, sort of Belle Epoque old Art Nouveau apartment buildings that have sort of deteriorated. And a bunch of enterprising young people have taken them over and turned them into cinemas, restaurants with food trucks, dance, and of course, dancing. So they've become quite popular. If you're in Budapest for the weekend, all of a sudden, all these young people from all over Europe come to Budapest to party all weekend. It's
Mm.
kind of an amazing place touring around.
I definitely missed that when I went to Budapest a few years ago.
Yeah, well, again, pandemic rules, maybe, perhaps.
Possibly. But if I had your book, I probably would have known.
Yeah, there you go. So I'll give you an example that you might know a little bit more. You know how many people like to come to London to see the West End Theatre, to, do the shopping. And consequently, they don't ever get out into England itself. So one of my suggestions is to go to Manchester.
Yes, I saw that.
So,
I used to live there, by the way, as well.
what?
I used to live in Manchester as well.
Yeah, so you know how much fun it is.
It is. It's very fun.
Manchester's got a great nightlife, lots of energy. I think people are far friendlier than the busy British capital. And they
True.
have a sense of humor where they like to tease you.
Mhm.
So these
Mancunians, as they call them. Yeah.
Mancunians, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a great, vibrant, fun place. It's got the, international football museum or soccer in the United
Hmm.
States, and it's got first-rate museums, fantastic architecture, good food, and
Great football team, soccer team, as you call it.
yeah. So and it's only 2 hours.
Hmm.
2 hours away. It's like see something different than just London. And again, we'll always have London, right? You're going to see it, but consider something else the next time you're in the UK.
You mentioned Manchester and a few other places that I've noticed in the UK. Is it predominantly written for the US audience, or is it for everyone around the world to pick up?
It's for everybody. There's an international component, but I think Nat Geo does a lot of its sales in the US and Canada. So you might say it's a little bit North American centric. And we try not to be, I think sometimes, and I hope we succeed, because I think these are places that have universal appeal no matter
Hmm.
where you're going. Now, I mean, there's a chapter in there about 3-day weekends you could take in the US, which is really good fun because I tell people to go to Detroit, not Miami. And if you can't get to Amsterdam for a 3-day weekend, like you can't in North America, then go, or easily, I should say, then go to Indianapolis. It has canals, it has biking, urban biking. It's got great food, and it's as flat as Amsterdam. So easy to get around.
Now, we mentioned about places like Miami, New York, London. If you've never traveled before, those are the places that you want to go to, don't you, to see what it's like. There's a curiosity, but then picking up this book and you've never traveled before, yes, you've had the, because my dream was always to go to New York, and that was the first place I went to when I went to the States for the first time. And but if I picked up this book, I'd say, okay, yeah, these are the places, but I'd probably want to go first to New York and then maybe say, okay, you know what, I've done New York. What else is out there? I think that's one of the things I took away from the book. Anyone who's never traveled before and is picking it up, there are off the beaten path that you can go to that you don't know about. And now that I travel, because I've been to very fortunate in my life to have traveled for work and pleasure as well, by the way, that I can say I can pick this up and go, actually, these are some of the places now I've done 20 years of travel. Let's go to Indianapolis. Let's go here. Let's go to San Antonio. Is it for people who have traveled a lot for over the last 10, 15 years and they think, "Wait, where else am I going to go next?" Are they the audience that you're looking to target more?
That's a really great question, Chubbs. And I would say I think it's for everybody. Again, the idea that you want to get inspired and travel and think, counterintuitively about it. But I can also see that, of course, you want to go to New York your first time out, right? Or you want to go to Washington, D.C. But should you read this book, you'll also discover that Washington, D.C., for example, has incredible neighborhoods that nobody ever seems to know, not a lot of tourists know about.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
mean, people in DC know it. That's where they choose to live. And with fabulous outdoor cafes, beautiful, brownstone buildings that rival New York's. And they're just, 5 minutes from the Smithsonian or, the Capitol or the White House. You can just get and have an amazing time. The same, for example, everybody loves New York and they love Brooklyn for its sort of bohemian aura. But I think you should realize now that the average home in Brooklyn is now $3 million. So
Mm.
there's not a lot of bohos that are living on three, and affording a $3 million mortgage. So just board the plane in an hour and a half. You're in Philadelphia, South Philly. It's got an amazing vibe. There's a park with a fountain and a loudspeaker that constantly plays Sinatra tunes because Little Italy was tradition. I mean, South Philly was traditionally the Italian section of Philadelphia. Amazing restaurants. I ate at a James Beard nominated Indonesian mom and pop, for example. They have the country's largest Asian market on the very tip or the very southern end of South Philly. And of course, you've got, all of this sort of still, the grit hasn't been washed away. So you really feel like, a lot of artists live there. It's really fun.
And your expectation for the book now, that is out, as I said, it's out for everyone to buy, all good bookstores and online. What's your expectation in terms of sales? What's the expectation for Nat Geo as well?
Oh, I think Nat Geo would like it, and I would like it to sell a lot. Travel books are interesting. This is my first book, and I'm, learning a little bit about the appeal of travel books. They have what's called a long tail, meaning it's not like a blockbuster from, a tell all by Ivanka Trump or something like that, where you get a lot of sales up front. What it is you get a constant sales, word gets out and people use it because it's got a shelf life and it'll be around for a while. And right now it's selling really well. I just saw on Amazon yesterday that was number one in travel pictorials or something like that. So
Congratulations.
that's a nice feeling. I mean, I'm excited to look at, writing other places like and writing about other things, so it's kind of funny. I'm sure you're the same way. For a travel writer, once the article is done and in the editor's hands, you're like, done. I don't even want to
Hmm.
read it. It's done. I'll take a look at the layout, of course, but chances are you see the layout even before it hits print. So
What's the plans then? Now that you've written this book, it's doing well. Congratulations, by the way. Have you got plans to write another book? Have you got what's the plans with Nat Geo?
I'm looking at a few topics. I've talked to Nat Geo a little bit. We haven't really, finalized anything, but there's so many like fantastic things. One of them is doing a book on set jetting because, as you know, as we were talking about, it's become quite the thing.
Hmm.
Right now, I think, you look at White Lotus or Bridgerton or any of these shows that are coming out set in these sumptuous environments, and people see them and they naturally want to go to them. They get curious about them. I think Carrie Bradshaw probably paid for the Manhattan tourism budget for at least a decade with Sex in the City being filmed there, and celebrating the glamour of Manhattan. But I think there's lots of places. There's lots of great old films. Do you know the film Giant with Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson about how?
Yes.
Well, you can go out to Marfa, Texas, and you look at the courthouse, and it's the spitting image of the house or the set they built in Giant. So it was a 1956 production. So again, I mean, there's so many fun things to see in the world, which is all about travel and seeing and looking at different things. I'd love to do something on, I call it kind of the new luxury. There is a tremendous amount of interest, I think, and rising affluence has created a market for it for luxury, but not in the same way our parents might have thought about luxury. I mean, I think it's the luxury of experience because,
Mm.
Jebs, the biggest luxury, the most indulgent thing you might have is time. Time is the luxury
Mm.
that
Hmm.
we all need more of. So, I think being able to write about exploring and seeing places in a leisurely pace, and you have the time to delve into different cultures and experiences, that intrigues me as well. So, those are two ideas I'm thinking about.
I tell you what, Andrew, you talk passionately about all these places, and I can see why you've written a book like this, and also go out and buy it, and because the author can see through the author's passion.
Well, thank you. I think you can't be a travel writer and not be passionate.
No.
The one thing travel writers have is incredible curiosity.
Mm.
They always want to know what's around the bend and over the hill. So
And once we've done one destination, we think, "Oh, what else is out there? What else can we see?" And that's the thing. That's the unexpected destinations that we want to see. And again, going back to your book, it's fantastic that you've written about 100 unexpected destinations that people might not know about. And it's great that you've done this. I applaud you, congratulate you and National Geographic for commissioning it. And so, for people who don't know, where can you purchase the book?
okay, so you can purchase the book easily online or your favorite bookstore. Amazon, of course, and again, I encourage people to also go to their bookstore and ask for it.
Well, Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Congratulations again on the book and enjoy your summer with family and friends. And I'm sure I'll see you down the road as well.
I hope so, Shebs. You always know travel writers always run into each other.
100%. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button to never miss an episode, and watch all my previous episodes from the show. You can also follow me on all my social media platforms. That's it for Take a Wando Chefs. Hope to see you all soon. Until next time, bye for now.